My name is Victor Dwyer, and today I'm with Seth, and he really helps with ranking and things like that. And I want him to go over a quick overview of what he does and really where he goes with and what his business does, and kind of just go in that direction, and then we'll start the conversation from there.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So I was a third-party seller from 2015 to 2021. I exited recently my business. And I saw a huge opportunity with launch and ranking. A lot of agencies just weren't doing it as well as I thought they could have been. So I kind of transitioned and started creating Brand Expand, which is our launch and ranking agency back in 2017. Basically started off really small, just networking with a lot of 7 to 9 figure sellers that I networked with previously. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And it was really all referral based in the beginning. And 2 years ago, we started creating a software so we could automate the process, help our clients more scale a little bit more effectively and lower our pricing. And then we just recently released our software. So that's why we're here at the expo. And we basically help drive traffic to Amazon listings and rank products. I'm sure we'll get way more into that here in a second. So, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. But yeah, we're a launch and ranking agency for Amazon sellers.
And going to where you go to the more website route of some people use Minichat, other things like that. You go the more website route with this whole thing. Yeah. Explain how the website route has worked for you, and how you have your own deal site and things like that, building up that traffic, and how having that type of list and community is so important to things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So we have like you said, we have a deal site. It's not only rebates, but we have deals. We're gonna have promos on there. It's really building a community of buyers that love deals, love coupon shopping, and it's more than just rebates, right? It's really providing value across the board, discounted products. And so we want to build a community over there. And so really they're kind of two separate businesses. We have our deal site, we have the B2B SaaS, and they work kind of in conjunction with one another. But it's nice to be able to build a community over there and provide value. And you find you have a higher engagement rate, the buyers continue to come back, they work in the best interest of the sellers, and it's really just a good community overall. And so we find that the CPA is generally pretty high for this because it's one of those things where you have to have a lot of social proof. People don't believe that they can actually get free products via rebates, and it is true, you can, so the CPA is relatively high, and so we want to be able to acquire those customers and keep them for a long time and keep them engaged. So over the long term, the value that they can provide to our sellers is pretty high.
How do you reach out when a new customer comes to you and you're really trying to push as many sales possible? Are you just putting it as a website, on a listing, or are you emailing them? How are you communicating to your customer?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So we'll display the listing on our deal sites, and then we'll usually send out 2 to 3 emails a week, just explaining the new deals, the new rebates that we have, and then that kind of brings the traffic back. The deal site's still in beta. We're still getting it. We still have a lot of features that we're going to roll out here in the next couple of months, and so we're really excited to do that and see where it goes.
Have you done any email testing on how you're sending traffic to your website yet?
No, not too many email testing. We use HubSpot, but it's we're going to integrate HubSpot more with the website moving forward. There's a lot of analytics that we want to be able to dive into more and look into that. But right now, it's relatively early.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to go into ranking in particular. And you had a very interesting thought on how inventory is applied to Amazon ranking. Yeah. And I find that really fascinating how you say if you double your inventory, it can actually help you rank your products. Can you go into that?
Yeah, this is an interesting theory. So when I was a third-party seller, it was right before Q1, which is pretty big in the health and wellness space. And I was I have this theory that if I double my inventory, that my sales will increase pretty drastically. And the idea is pretty simple. If you put a product out there, let's just say you're doing a vitamin C serum, right? And the top seller is selling, 10,000 of these a month, right? And you only have 1,000 units stocked. It doesn't matter how good your product listing is. It doesn't matter what your conversion rates are. If you don't have enough inventory to compete with the top sellers, Amazon's not going to rank you that high. Yeah. So the idea is pretty simple. It's if you have good conversions, you have a good product offering, you have enough social proof in the form of reviews, if you just stock sufficient inventory, Amazon's going to rank you higher, right? And so I went through this test and I actually doubled my inventory, took out a big loan and doubled all my inventory, and my sales went up about 60% within a couple of weeks. And that's the only thing that I did. And so, I'm not saying double your inventory and your sales will double, it's not that easy, but I'm saying that I think it has more implications than a lot of sellers think.
Yeah, and then there's like a lot of people would love to double their inventory, but with those dang restock limits, it's been killing sellers.
Right.
So I wish they're obviously We Boost and things like that, and that sort of helps kick up inventory. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you've seen to try to really drive the increase for those increasing restocking limits?
Yeah, and I touched on this in the speech yesterday, but yeah, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but you really want to do launches, and you want to do slow launches that are like what we call staircase launches. So you start slow. You can either have like a linear curve, upward curve of doing 1 unit per day, 2, 3, 4, and just build up slowly over time. And then that shows the algorithm that your sales velocity is increasing slowly, and so they'll allow a little bit more inventory every couple of weeks, right? And so you're kind of building up your sales slowly, telling the algorithm that you can continue to increase your sales velocity, and thus they're going to allow you to have more inventory. Cool. So that's the best way that we've found, and that's really the organic way, I think, to do it. There's other ways that probably aren't aren't very smart to do. Everybody finds a way around it, but if you want to do it organically and TOS compliant, that's probably the best way to do it.
And I'm curious, will fulfilled by merchant, when you adding another fulfillment method to your ASIN, what are your thoughts? Well, do you think that would increase your having that increased inventory limit on fulfilled by merchant? Will that be the same thing applied to the algorithm, or do you think it's only FBA?
Yeah, I think it's only FBA. We've tested this too. We've had sellers that are like, well, if I have merchant fulfilled and if I increase sales velocity on my MFN, will it help increase the inventory limitation? It doesn't. Amazon's figured that one out. So so there's really no indication that helps.
But then people have that 12 inventory limit. You can't send in 12 units and then you go through it in one day, and then it's what are they supposed to do if you can only send 12 units?
I've never seen 12.
I've seen 12. It's really bad.
How do you even start? I mean, it's hard enough as a new seller, and then they're like, nope, 12 units. It's not even a pallet. It's some corner tucked away. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's not really in our wheelhouse. If you come to us and you're like, well, I can only send 12 units, I'm like, well, we can't really do anything for you. That's rough. So yeah.
But that's really interesting. And then going back onto the fulfilled by merchant type of thing, what I've seen on the Amazon algorithm is once Amazon is actually overutilized, when too much Prime members are ordering things and they're too busy essentially, they're actually prioritizing FBM listings more than Prime because they can't fulfill everything via Prime, so they actually start prioritizing fulfilled by merchant. Right. So that way they can take more orders from Prime members, and they're actually really putting those up in the listing, which is actually quite fascinating.
It is, because historically, they don't like MFN.
Yes,
and they're
exactly.
like, oh, wait, okay, there's a lot of demand here. Why don't you guys come back and help us out? It's they'll boost up MFN, and it's you're literally trying to phase out MFN, and now because there's too much demand, you're like, you know what, come back. We need your help, But it is interesting. They do, we have seen that where it's well, my MFN, listing in merchant fulfillment is what I mean by that, is ranking higher than my actual Amazon fulfilled. And we're like, never seen that before. But yeah, it's exactly like you said. It's because there's so much demand that they're literally our fulfillment centers cannot handle the demand. So we're going to rely on you guys to help us out a bit, But yeah, it's fascinating.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. For everybody, involved.
Yes. It really just makes sense to have a fulfilled by merchant strategy in place at that point, because if Amazon's going to prioritize fulfilled by merchant, you want to at least have that listing available and just have it a backup just in general, especially if your Amazon account gets shut down or whatever may happen. You don't want to lose everything that you have in FBA.
Absolutely. Right, exactly. And if you run out of FBA inventory, at least you could flip it over to MFN, and perhaps I don't know this for sure, but I don't think the ranking, if you're still able to fulfill the products, but it's not FBA, your ranking I don't think will drop nearly as much. So it's good to have the backup plan. And that's what I did too as a third-party sellers. I had a warehouse that would prep our products to go to FBA, and they also did fulfillment. And so I would always stock, 2-3 weeks worth of products there in case all of a sudden, there's weird things that happen. I mean, everybody knows, like, times,
those
right?
weird Amazon things,
There are
yes.
weird things that happen. All of a sudden, you like sell out within a couple days, and you're like, what happened? You know what I mean? So, like, just preparing for those odd events is smart. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Especially like when Amazon randomly suspends a listing, like a customer gets confused between a manufacturer date and an expiration date is like one of the biggest things I see.
Yeah.
And then they suspend your FBA listing, but your fulfilled by merchant is still like available. Like
Right.
it's just one of those weird things that happen.
Exactly. It's good to in anything like that. You know, it's good to diversify your risk, basically.
Yeah,
you know what
it
I mean?
really
That's
is.
really what it's about, right?
And like when you are seeing the increased ranking
Yeah.
and things like that, is there any particular way you report on the increased rankings? Like say a person gets to rank 1 for a particular product. Is there a typical outlook or viewpoint you have on it when someone gets to rank 1 saying, oh, you increased sales by this much? Or because you have to think about it, a boost doesn't just boost the product, it boosts the advertising, it boosts the
Totally.
sales velocity, it boosts so many different things.
Yeah.
Like how do you attribute all the success of a boost together? It's very difficult. It really is really difficult.
Yeah, no, I love that question. We're actually working on a way to quantify the ROI. But like you said, I mean, there's so many things that come into play. Like
Yeah.
you're not only, you know, ranking up, doing more like giveaways perhaps, but you're getting organic sales with that, and there's more organic sales, so there's more word of mouth, and their PPC probably increases because the algorithm looks at your conversion rate. So there's all of these things that come into play. So we are actually gonna try to work on an algorithm that's gonna be able to quantify that with our software. So because that's one of the biggest questions we get is like, well, how do I determine the ROI from this product launch? And what we say is we're like, well, just, you know, run the numbers, right? But it's, you know, it's like take your product costs, you know, what you pay us, you know, you're giving away the product for free, but you're getting revenue back, less Amazon commission, FBA fees. And so you can work through it and come out with a pretty good number to determine if there's a positive ROI, which, you know, 9 times out of 10 there is, especially in the long term. But we haven't gotten to the point where we can actually quantify it, and it's never going to be an exact science.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's going to be like, how close can we get? And there's some softwares I think that are doing that. I think you had mentioned that you're trying to do something like that as well.
True. Yeah, I'm trying to create a report that basically shows the sales shows the rank and also the sales increase from that particular rank for that particular keyword.
Sure.
So that way I can see for this keyword you saw a $5,000 keyword increase in sales per day, and then another one might be 10,000.
Right.
And trying to really attribute sales like that in the best of my ability. But what's interesting is I've been trying to quantify the decrease in PPC spend. Is there a good percentage, like a 20%? Like let's say you boost a product, do you see the PPC spend like go down 20%, or is it? It's really difficult to quantify. It really is. But have you seen a number like that, or do you have some kind of percentage point?
You know, like PPC is, you know, challenging because it's like everybody's ACoS, break-even ACoS is different, right?
True.
Some people might have 30% break-even ACoS, some people might have 50, some people might break even at 15, you know? So it really depends, and there's so many variables that, again, come into play. But, I mean, once you get, you know, enough social proof, once you rank it up, once, you know, you have, the conversion rates are higher because people are coming to your listing and buying your product, then inevitably your cost of sales will drop for your ads, right? But to say it's like 10%, that's... that would be, I think, a little bit difficult, but there's certainly a decrease. When I do my speech, I talk about this. When you're starting out with PPC or driving external traffic via Facebook or Google or YouTube or whatever it may be, you're going to be losing money initially, right? Yeah, I'm sure you know that. But then after you start, you know, again, getting reviews and getting social proof and getting more traffic, that eventually it comes down, and you want to focus on having more break-even type of campaigns. Yeah.
And also, like with the dramatic increase of Amazon advertising cost in general, like we're seeing almost like 10%, 20% increases in cost per month leading up to Q4.
For sure.
And that's like a huge deal.
Yeah.
So that means like when it comes down to organic and boost posting, or like if people are paying $10, $15 CPCs, it's not profitable at that point.
Sure.
And if you boost that product, if you boost for that particular keyword, it becomes more profitable because you're now ranking organically rather than just trying to go for advertising.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, what we find is like our top 5% of sellers, I mean, they're driving external traffic. They've figured this out, right? And it's so important. It's pretty well known across the third-party selling community that external traffic is going to rank way better. I mean, why would Amazon not rank it better, right? They want external traffic coming in. They want to grow their customer base, right? So, so you have to figure out a way to really set up those campaigns. You have to figure out a way to drive external traffic in, so you're not so reliant on PPC, which, like you said, especially in Q4, goes through the roof. I mean, so if you're just relying on internal ads, you're going to be hurting in Q4. You're going to be lucky if you have positive profit margins, right? So it's really, really important to prioritize that external traffic.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I've also noticed, I've been playing around with these Google links, these Google URL. I think they're called like Google Thrasio links or something like that.
Sure.
And I've been playing around with them, and I've seen almost a triple increase. So for example, let's say for a search find buy, I give away 100 products. Yep. And you can rank number one for that keyword for cost per giveaway, to rank for that keyword, you have to give away 100 products. And if you use the Google links, you only have to give away a third less, which is actually quite fascinating that Amazon is prioritizing traffic, external traffic, more than their own internal traffic. Right. So if people are typing in bedsheet on Amazon, they're saying, okay, that's all right, but when that comes from Google, they're like, oh, this is way more important than our own search engine. And so it's interesting how they're prioritizing Google's search engine rather than their own. So that's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I love that example, and it's true. GR links, Google links, whatever you want to call them, do work about 3 times more effectively, and so that's a perfect example of external traffic just ranking way better than internal traffic. And we've had sellers use them. We allow them to put a link in for their launch. Whether or not we recommend that is probably not an area I'm going to get into, because I don't know. It's a little bit, in that gray area, right?
It is.
But it does help pretty significantly. And again, that's a good example of external traffic just showing. So it's not even just Google links. I mean, just driving any external traffic. I mean, we find that when we drive from our deal site to Amazon and have them give feedback on your listing, that it just ranks really, really effectively, and it's almost nearly as effective as GR links. In fact, when sellers come to us and they're like, well, should I use this? I'm like, choose our method. We have an organic method and it works pretty dang well. So, but yeah.
What are your, when you initially do a boost, I assume that when a product isn't ranked yet, you use a super URL starting out, correct? I assume so?
No, not necessarily. We make sure that it's indexing.
Yeah.
If it's indexing,
what if it's not indexed?
Then we have the seller index, right? So we have a tool to do that, and make sure that they have the keyword somewhere in the listing, so it's indexing somewhere. And 9 times out of 10, we can have them find it buried on page 20 or whatever. They have to search a little bit for it. But we try to be as organic as possible. We try to steer clear of using super URLs. We don't use them. We just, in our software, we have an area where they can put them in. So in the worst case scenario, if we can't find it anywhere, then we'll perhaps use one of the Pixelfy URLs or something to start indexing it, to start getting it ranked up a little bit so that we can start finding it organically.
So you actually expect your customer to go through page 20? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's impressive. You have some committed customers. I would see dramatic cuts in my conversion rate.
For sure.
Because I would see basically page 5, they just say they couldn't find the product. And so what I usually do is I use a super URL, get it to about page 3 or 4, and then I usually let them search for the product.
Yeah, and that's smart. Yeah, and that's kind of what we do. We maybe wait until it's an absolute last case scenario, because again, we're trying to do things as organically as possible. But that's pretty much what we do as well. If we can't find it, using a super URL is the best way to get it to page 3 to 5. And then a lot of people can find it. I think with our deal site, we have so much traffic that if some people don't want to find it, that's fine, because the other person's going to get a free product. You know what I mean? So, that's a great point.
And it's also important to note, that's Amazon. That's the first thing Amazon's going to figure out. The fact that they haven't found out what a super URL is kind of sad at this point. Obviously, the super URLs don't work as effectively as search, find, buy.
Yeah.
But the fact that they still haven't figured that part out. There's search, find, buy is so out of the loop at this point, because that's almost untraceable. Search, find, buy. People, you're opening up your app, your Amazon app, you're typing in bed sheets, and then they buy a product. That's completely normal, like a normal customer.
Correct.
And that's going to be very untraceable for them. But the fact that they even haven't found a super URL, a basic super URL link, not even a Pixelfy, a fancy one, that's kind of crazy. So they're really behind the loop when it comes to all this, which is good.
Yeah. For sellers, it's good.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're so big that like one Amazon associate does one job, right? They're kind of siloed into one job. I remember I was at an Amazon conference, I don't know, like 3 years ago, and we were in a room and we asked an Amazon associate that's pretty high up, we're like, you know, what's your view on super URLs? And they were like, what's a super URL? And we're all like, you serious right now? Like, this guy doesn't know what's super. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why they
all the ranking people are giggling. They're going,
yeah, exactly. They're like, all right, good. Don't tell them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Nobody really knows what Amazon's thinking. You know, everything's so ambiguous. They don't, you know, the terms of service, it's like, you know, so you know, what it boils down to is like if something works better than something else and something can give you a little bit of a competitive edge and they're being ambiguous about it, then you're probably, you know, a lot of sellers are probably going to exploit that, you know, and that's just the reality. And so why would you not, you know what I mean? So yeah, it is interesting, and I'm sure sellers are okay with it, but some sellers would probably like a little more clarity around it. So I don't know. Yeah.
And like when it comes to the Amazon TOS of boosting, like it literally says you're not allowed to manipulate the search algorithm.
Right.
But like we do that when we update our titles, our bullet points, changing our main image. Like we're basically like putting in SEO keywords and things like that. So it's so unbelievably gray and vague that there's really no way to like pinpoint like what that necessarily means, and it's just so vague.
Right, and that's the ambiguity I'm talking about, right? Like at one point they say like you can't hire an agency to help increase your product ranking. It's like if I was a third-party seller and I went to an agency to help with any aspect of my listing or PPC or whatever, and they're like, well, we can't help you increase your ranking, you know that, right? And I'd be like, all right, peace. Like, I'm not going to bother with you then, you know what I mean? So it's just, again, it's like really, it's really hard to know what they're thinking or what's okay and what's not. And that's why there's always debates around like launch and ranking. Is it okay, is it not? It's because there's so much ambiguity, right? So so there'll always be that debate as long as Amazon remains that way. So
I definitely agree. Is there anything else that you wanted to try to discuss or bring up or anything else like that?
You know, you have a really interesting approach. I know you use Minichat flows, whereas we kind of take the Dealside approach. I mean, tell me a little bit about that. I think that's fascinating because the Minichat approach we've tried before, it's really hard to dial it in. Like, what type of journey do you take buyers through, and how do you make sure they buy the product and then subsequently follow up with a rebate?
So basically, we start out and we tell them, hey, go to Amazon and search this product. And we guide them through that process and saying like, hey, look for this listing, here it is. And once they find the product, we basically we tell them to order the product and we ask for their order ID at that point. And then we basically have an API connection that connects directly to the Seller Central account. And it basically says, did this person purchase? And after they purchase, it will say yes, it verified. Then they go through the order process and we ask for their email to send the gift card to. And then that's it. And then once the product ships, we ask for them to take a picture of it just to verify that it was shipped and everything else. So there's like no fraud or anything else like that.
For sure.
And then after 5 business days, we send them their gift card.
Okay, cool. That's awesome, man. Like, I know it's really hard, and the reason why I think there's not a lot of competition in this space is because it's so hard. I mean, dealing with buyers is like herding cats, you know what I mean? Because they try all the different types of tactics to like get free money, and you have to follow up. You have to make sure they're not canceling orders or doing refunds, right? And so there's all these different things you have to do. And so I'd be interested in, and this is probably a conversation for another time, but like different ways that you hold buyers accountable so they're acting in the best interest of sellers. There's a buyer quality score that sellers talk about a lot. So that would be interesting to chat about kind of another time.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's also important to note that when it comes to like using Minichat, you get that increased follow up with the 90% open rates and things like that that make a big difference for a lot of sellers. And you can reach out to them at any point when other deal things come up, because that's what they want. They want deals. They want to get free products and things like that. And that's why I'm not afraid to talk about it so much, because it is so unbelievably complicated. There's so many integrations, and like you have to understand each integration and what goes on. And like you can literally take our exact flow and copy everything. Our flows change every 48 hours because you have to keep up with the Amazon TOS, keep up with Facebook TOS, and if you don't change it every 48 hours, sellers, you're going to get blocked. Right. Something's going to happen where you're going to get screwed.
It's not a set it and forget it type of model.
Yes, I'm not like, if someone wants to keep up with all that, good luck. That's all I gotta say. So that's why it's so funny because a lot of clients come to me and say, hey, I want to do consulting. Consult me, teach me everything. And I get through about like 3 weeks in, and they say like, okay, Victor, this is too complicated. We're just gonna give this to you.
Like, that's like the first thing I tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the same way. We're like, listen, this is how we do this, but we've been building this over the past 3 years, and our software's taken 2 years, and so you could, you know what I mean? So it's really not easy. I mean, the external traffic, the reason why I say 5% of sellers do it is because it's so complicated.
True.
It's very hard to dial it in, and like you said, you got to continuously update because things are always changing. Literally every week we have something new come up, and we're like, well, we got to pivot, and change. So yeah, it's pretty complex. But yeah, I love the idea of using Minichat if you can dial that in. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what do you typically find is your like cost per giveaway? Like what would the seller end up paying at the end of the day?
So that's very dependent on the product. Usually, I have like supplement products. It's usually a little bit harder to give away those because there's so many people doing it. Like your apple cider vinegar supplement example. Yeah. Like there's so
That's
many
why
out
I used
there.
it because it's like. Everyone's like,
everyone.
I'm like, dude, everybody's cabinet is stocked with ACV gummies. Okay, like we don't need any more,
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've seen like certain products that I've given like the cost of entry be about 20 cents to get the people inside the funnel, and then the cost per purchase be around $2 or $3. Okay. So, but that's like for a really hot product. I've given away certain products that are literally the Facebook ads end up going viral. So I've like literally given away like 200 products with $12 ad spend. Crazy. That's never ever happened before, but that was only one case. Yeah. But for those really hot products that have a really hot brand, it's very easy to do. Okay. But then I have other products that my cost per purchase is like $40, $20 or $40. Right. So it's really difficult, but usually my cost to get people inside my funnel is usually about $4, depending on the product.
And then you build up this buyer list. Do you retarget them with your giveaways? And like,
yes.
How does that work exactly?
So basically, if a big client comes to me and says, hey, I want to give away 1,000 units this week. I want to really rank for this keyword. I got my investors looking at my company. I need to be number one under every circumstance. Yeah. So then we just target our entire $25,000, however many purchases we want. Yeah. So if we want 1,000, we would target like 2,000. Usually we get about 50% people coming. Right. And then we get those people in and we really push up that keyword as much as humanly possible.
Okay, cool. So you actually set up the Minichat flow, you push them through, you try to get the cost per rebate kind of down, but then you acquire these buyers and you can retarget them with subsequent launches. That's smart. Great.
And we actually do something very similar to your website. We have called what's an active product flow. So like we work with tons of clients that are giving away tons of product. So we put all of them in one like carousel where people can literally go through at any time. And once they finish purchasing one product, they can just go through and swipe what other products they want. Okay. And so we have like a 50 product selection that they can choose from. They can just swipe and say, oh, I want that. And then they just keep going and they can order as many products as they want.
Very cool. I asked Victor here to reach out to me today because I was like, we have two very similar models, but two very different skill sets. So I'm like, there's something we can partner with here, like I'd be interested to see. We'll have to figure out something, but yeah, no, I think what you're doing is fascinating. I think it's very cool. So yeah.
Yeah, you definitely took a different approach from what I did. Yeah. So it's definitely interesting. We can definitely see ways to collaborate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I sometimes regret the approach I took, but I'm like, all right, we're finally getting close to the software. After 2 years of development, it's been the most challenging thing I've ever done. Software development, just hire an internal team. That's all I have to say. Do not try to go with agencies. They do not work in the best interest, generally speaking, but it's been a crazy ride. But yeah, I think there is potential for collaboration for sure. But
And tell them where they can find you or like LinkedIn, wherever you want them to follow you.
Yeah, so our website's brandexpand.us. You can go there, check it out. You can reach out to me. My name is Seth, so Seth at brandexpand.us. LinkedIn, Seth Hurd. Hurd, and yeah, reach out to me. Our business dev manager is Ian at brandexpand.us, and he handles a lot of service questions, customer service questions, and stuff like that. And yeah, we'll talk about launch and ranking and see if our agency is right for you, and go from there.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for coming
Thanks,
on.
Victor. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.